we've driven every system, I think, on the market or close to it. That was probably the most natural human feeling system.
100%.
Really good. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome to the Mustang Mach-E GT, and welcome to finally a BlueCruise 1.2 Hogback Driver Assistance Challenge. So if you're not familiar with our Driver Assistance Challenge, this is basically the base of the I-70 hill climb just west of Denver, Colorado. Absolutely beautiful views and insane corners, and it is honestly the hardest driver assistance test on YouTube. It's also the only. So, you know, we made it that way. This is a Mustang Mach-E GT, and it actually was sent to us by Ford so we could test the newly updated BlueCruise 1.2. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about the updates. I'm going to show you the safety of the system, what happens if you're not paying attention, and then, of course, we're going to take it on the Hogback loop and see how it does. Actually, what's kind of interesting is this is not the first and only BlueCruise we've run in the Hogback. We've also run a Ford F-150 Lightning with BlueCruise 1.0, and we noticed it had some meandering and some weird things. So I'm hoping a lot of the updates here will help it perform better than the Lightning. We'll have to find out. So let's go through what we're actually going to be doing. These are typically really long videos for the nerds who appreciate driver assistance systems. We've run everything from Teslas in this test all the way to Mercedes, to BMW, to GM Super Cruise, and here we're running the Ford BlueCruise 1.2. So the first thing we should talk about is what vehicles support BlueCruise 1.2. That would be Mustang Mach-E for model year 23. They're delivered with this system. Model year 21 and 22 will receive, I'm told, an over-the-air update for BlueCruise 1.2, and that will start rolling out at the end of this year. It's also Lincoln Active Glide, I believe is what they call it. Some of those vehicles will support it. F-150 Lightning will support this, but not every BlueCruise enabled vehicle will support 1.2. I don't have an exact list, but we know the electric stuff will, and that's what we care about on this channel for the most part. Okay, so model year 23 Mach-E GT. This is sort of the spicy Mach-E. There's one above this, and I've already done driving reviews on this, so we're not really going to talk much about the car. This is going to be more about the software itself. What does the software do compared to the older systems? Well, I had a chance to talk to one of the engineers on the system, and I said, you know, they're familiar with our Hogback test. I was like, what are we going to find? And it was a pretty interesting conversation. I really liked how open Ford was about the progress of their system, how they think it's going to stack up against Super Cruise and Tesla's autopilot. And honestly, everything they told me was sort of what I'm expecting here. We're going to see a reduced number of ping-pongings, but they're like, there's still some more work to do. And I guess they're testing some versions internally that really lock this thing in the center of the lane. So we should see some less meandering in the lane, but also new and improved functions such as automatic lane change, which I tested on the drive over here. And I'll have a separate video than this one talking about, and that may already be up on the channel, about how Mach-E does in sort of highway driving situations, cruising through Kansas, if you will. And that will all be coming. But the lane change was freaking awesome. It's such a well-calibrated change. You know, sometimes, like iX, for example, BMW system, when you hit the turn signal, it's like, gets you over there. We're like, oh, well, they did all their tuning in New Jersey by their headquarters, obviously. And with this, it was just a really nice lane change situation. What else do you get with BlueCruise 1.2? You get a really nice function where it actually scooches you over when there's another truck nearby, or other cars, even big cars. So you know, sometimes when you're on a driver assistance system and there's like a truck that you're passing and you're like feeling way too close, this automatically scooches. Now, the only other system that I can think of that does that would be Hyundai's Highway Driving Assist 2. I believe only the 2 does it, not HDA 1. And it's a little bit weird. With HDA 2, you like get halfway up on the truck and like maybe 10% of the time it like throws you to the left side of the lane, at least in my experience. Here, there's a really cool animation that I'll show you. It'll probably happen throughout the drive. And it tells you ahead of time, hey, I see a truck over here. I'm just going to gently move, give you an extra, I don't know, 6 inches, 8 inches, just for room, breathing room. And then it pulls you over to the center of the lane when you're done. Really impressive scooching here. I love that function. There's some other little things that 1.2 does as well, but I just find that the whole behavior of the system, from the way that it accelerates, that it brakes, its predictive nature, it's very much a more grown-up system than BlueCruise 1.0. The hands-free portion seems to work on even more areas than 1.0. So I found myself driving from Fort Collins to Denver almost completely in hands-free. Just lots of small updates here. So I'm looking forward to showing you all of this. The one thing I want to start with, we always start Hogbacks with this, of course, is to actually take this car on a side road and see how it gets my attention. We're basically going to pretend that there's a medical emergency in the car and to see how its safety systems alerts the driver to take over and maybe even pedestrians or drivers around you. For example, the things that we look for are pulsing of the brakes to wake you up, maybe yanking of the seatbelt. ID4, for example, honks the horn, puts the hazards on. There's a lot of things that automakers can do to get your attention if you're in a medical emergency. I don't actually remember what Ford does, so let's jump in, let's try that, and then we'll walk you through our full objective scoring of the Hogback and also our subjective feedback on our opinions. The scoring system, I don't want you guys to play too much into the scoring system because there's different traffic conditions, there's different lighting conditions. It's just an interesting way to benchmark everything. Right now, the F-150 Lightning actually is sitting mid-pack, right in the middle out of everyone. So I'm expecting this to probably do a bit better, but you never know. And the other thing is, it's really about, let's just use the scoring system as a general idea of how it does. But you got to watch the long, 40+ minute long video, because then we tell you, hey, here's what we're feeling. Here's what we experienced last time, just from our, inputs here. So Ryan is joining me today. We're going to run the Mach-E GT in the out-of-spec Hogback Challenge. Let's go pretend like we're dying behind the wheel and see how the car wakes us up. So you join us in the Mach-E now, and we have everything set to full intensity on the driver assistance. It's funny, it tells you can't do certain functions on this screen. So what I'm going to do is engage the system. We typically do somewhere between 30 and 35 miles an hour. I'm going to let it lock into lane centering, which I'm just waiting for it to do at the moment. So we'll let it find itself. There we go. And this is not a pre-mapped section of road that we're on right now. We're on a frontage road next to I-70, so it's hands-on. But the alerts to get you to pay attention should be the same. The only difference with using BlueCruise is if you look away, it'll ask you to look up and watch the road. And you can see it's asking me to touch the steering wheel because it's a capacitive, or excuse me, not a capacitive wheel, it's a torque wheel. But now I'm going to let go. We're going to see how long it goes without me telling it to do anything. There's no traffic around, which is wonderful. So our first warning already, keep hands on steering wheel, has popped up, and we're going to just let it go to do its thing to see how it alerts us. There's someone very far back in the distance. We get a chime. This steering wheel has gone red and the screen around has gone red. It's not a very loud chime. Let's see what happens. Still continuing along. We do have a car coming up behind us. It's just going like this. It's still going. And it says resume control. And what I'm going to have to do is just pull over here to let this person go by because they were coming up very quickly in their Subaru race wagon. And what I'm going to do is try and get us back in that same situation, and we'll pick up right when it goes to that double chime, the do, and it says resume control. So let me get us right back in that situation, and we'll see what happens after. So here we are into resume control again. Let's see what happens after this. It's still steering. Oh, brake applications, that's good. 2 hard brakes, 2 stabs. Not as hard as some guys. The Audi will go full ABS when you do that. It is now slowing down. Still slowing down. We're under 17 miles an hour. There's no hazards. It's just stopping in the middle of the road. 10, 9, 8, and I have to take over because cars are coming. So no hazard. Brings us to 5 miles an hour and just coasts. Crazy. So that's pretty wild. It didn't even come to a stop. It just went to 5. Lane centering not available anymore. Now we're in BlueCruise jail. It's interesting that it just coasted along instead of coming to a stop. So that is weird. No hazards either. I had to manually put them on to alert the traffic that was coming up behind us. Very, very odd behavior. Maybe 5 miles an hour is safer than 0. I'd be curious to see what you guys think in the comments. Which would you prefer? No car right now will pull over to the shoulder, but I think there's more Ford could have done. Hazards, horn, yanking of the seatbelt, although that can wear out the seatbelt little pretensioners in there. So interesting. Well, Ryan, welcome to the video.
Thanks, happy to be here.
So let's run through. We always go through an initial series of points awarding. Basically, every car starts with 0 points. We originally thought 0 would be a perfect score, but it turns out some cars do really well and some cars do really bad. So actually, if you go to our totals here really quick, what's in terms of scores, we have a score all the way from 13 as the highest and minus 26 as the lowest. And I want to say actually 17 is the highest. Maybe we haven't updated this fully recently because I feel like EQS won. That is updated. The Mercedes system had the best performance out of everything. Which was funny because that was in the Mercedes EQS, but the GLS did like pretty bad. What did the GLS do here? It did minus 22. It was like one of the worst. And then the EQS was one of the best. So let's not always go off of our point scoring, but the EQS had a better system. So if we run over here to Mach-E BlueCruise, Ryan, why don't you run us through and you just hit me with one and we'll give it the points for them.
Sure, yeah. Let's start off with some of the driver interfaces. Does it have a capacitive wheel? No capacitive wheel. It is torque only, so we're not going to award it any points. Okay. Does it have driver safety eye tracking? It does. Even if you're not in hands-free BlueCruise on a non-mapped highway, if you're looking away, it'll say, hey, watch the road. Okay, very cool. I'll add that. Does it have hands-free eye tracking? Yes, it does. So that is the BlueCruise functionality, the hands-free situation, which is on pre-mapped only roads. It allows you to go hands-free. Very cool. And as you just mentioned, it is limited to pre-mapped highways. So the genesis behind this one, which we may want to change a little bit, is this is really for Super Cruise. That doesn't allow any lane centering on non-pre-mapped highways, where this just defaults to normal lane centering with a torque input like autopilot, like others, like, I don't know, autopilot comes to mind. So we actually don't deduct the points for Ford BlueCruise here. Okay, gotcha. Yep. And how about gauge cluster showing vehicles around you? Yes, it does do that. Sweet. Actually, let's hold off on that. I'm not sure if it shows you vehicles to the side. It shows you in front, but we'll hold. I think it actually doesn't show vehicles next to you. If it does, we'll add it as soon as we get out on the road. Sounds like a plan. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to some of the automatic functions. Does it adapt to the speed limit? It does, yes. Sweet. Does it offset the speed limit? Yes, you can go, I believe, up to, let's find out what the actual tolerance is, 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, I believe. And so we set it at 0 for this test, but I usually keep it on +5. Perfect. Does it have adaptive system aggressiveness? It does not. It doesn't seem to drive any differently if I'm in unbridled versus whisper mode. Okay. And how about, as you just mentioned, it's not separate from the driving modes. Right, because we don't have any adjustment there. And automatic lane changes. It does now have automatic lane changes, yes, and they're very good. Great to hear. Without user input? No, you have to select the turn signal, but what it actually will do is it'll pop up a message that says, hey, you're behind slow traffic and there's a lane next to you. And it says something like lane change would be preferable. It's a little message about it. So it alerts you that, yes, you can change lanes, but it's not automatic with this software at the moment. Okay, so no points awarded there. Right, yep, but we do give it the automatic lane change point. Absolutely, and next let's move on to the warnings. Did it yank the seatbelt? Right, so this is back to when we played the dead person in the driver's seat, or the medical emergency. I don't know what the PR-friendly way of saying all this is, but basically, if you die, what does the car do? And seatbelt yank? No, it does not yank the seatbelt. Does it shake the seat? It does not. Exterior horn? No. Oof. How about hazard lights? No. Bringing it to a complete stop? It does not. It goes 5 miles an hour.
Does the steering let go without warning?
Thankfully, it does not, because
Okay.
that's a Hyundai situation with their highway driving assist. So Hyundai Kia Genesis, they keep it on cruise control and then shut off steering, and you're just like full send into whatever's in front of you.
That's frightening.
Yes, I know.
Jeez.
That's why we have this one there.
Yeah, I understand that. And does it pull over to the shoulder?
Nothing does at the moment.
Okay. Looks like it did not get anything right there.
Right, so no points awarded for safety, so I'd really like to see Ford improve on that. So what we're going to do is buckle up. We're going to get the rest of the camera views opened here, if we can make sure everything is good. And I think we are recording. Hell yeah. Let's go. So I'm actually very pleased with the lighting conditions for this drive right now. Typically what we do is we don't really have a set environmental conditions test, because, you know, it'd be so hard to coordinate that. Different times of the year. We've run Hogback in rain and sun and with a little bit of snow and sleet, so it's kind of, you know, luck of the draw, if you will. But I actually think that this sort of dusk lighting should give the Ford a slight advantage. And I have noticed that with direct sunlight hit, the system is not terrible. Some systems just don't work at all, but this definitely is not, yeah, it's not like, it definitely lets go of BlueCruise hands-free and sometimes reverts to just needing you to touch the wheel. And if direct sunlight hits the camera, like when I was driving over here, it doesn't allow for any lane centering. You get the message that forward collision warning isn't going to work so well. That's not uncommon. These sensors have limitations. I really think the only ones that work into direct sunlight is magically Tesla. They really do a great job with sun right on the camera. So what we're doing now is we're heading over to the highway. We will accelerate on the on-ramp. Once we get up to the 65-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, we will you know, get right up there, engage the system, and then the process starts and we start evaluating. And so let's do that. Let's deploy the 600 pound-feet of torque or so in this thing. It's good. It's not full power because we're a little bit low on charge. We're at about 56%, but we always want to get the vehicles up to speed and locked in on the system. So I'm going to lock it to 65. We're going to get us in the lane, and we're going to see how it does here. So right now, it is not into lane centering at the moment. Sometimes cars have a hard time getting locked in on this first corner. And so, yeah, right now I'm still driving. I'm just waiting for it to take control, and everything should be set so that it can do so. Why aren't we engaging lane keeping system on? Lane centering not available. You know why, Ryan?
Why?
Because we played dead and we didn't shut the car off.
Oh no.
We're in BlueCruise jail.
Darn it.
We got to restart the test. This actually happened with the Super Cruise test. Same thing.
That's really funny.
Okay, so see you back in the same spot in just a couple minutes. Well, you join us back now, merging onto the on-ramp, sending it through. You know, that's always a great way to start a driver assistance test. And we're going to get the system locked in. I'm going to set it to 65. It's actually already auto steering. What's funny is this little green message in the bottom of the screen shows up before the blue hands wheel thing kicks on. So we're locked in, and what we actually already have going for us is the automatic speed adaptation for corners, another BlueCruise 1.2 update. So it's actually slowing down for them. Now we're not in hands-free at the moment, which is fine. We don't take points away for that. This is a tough section of road, and I think one thing we noticed with the F-150 Lightning was that on the tough corners, it wants your hands on the wheel, understandably. And for the straightaway bits, it goes full BlueCruise, you know, hands-free eye tracking. It's actually starting to get darker out than we would have hoped, but hey, we run this test either way. I think it's not bad. Let's go for an auto lane change. Clicking it here, it says preparing for a lane change. I just looked around, super smooth. How nice was that?
Pretty good.
That is freaking awesome. The other thing it'll do is it will actually accelerate during the lane change, so it doesn't move over and then accelerate. I've just selected the left lane change, and it's already starting to put its foot down before we clear the path of this vehicle here. Now you'll notice our vehicle moved to the left, and it's actually scooching away from this truck right over here. So I'm keeping my hands lightly grazing the wheel for this particular section where the hands-free portion isn't on. I believe when we get up to the straightaway, it'll go hands-free. But this is a really tough section of the road, and yeah, all seems super smooth so far. I'm actually really impressed. It's going for a lane change to the right in the middle of a corner. A little bit of braking, but I think what it's doing is actually slowing down for the curves. And Ryan, what's your opinion of systems that slow down before they enter the curve versus some, go in and then when they like reach a maximum G or steering angle, for example, that's when they start, slowing down the vehicle? What do you prefer?
Definitely. I've had a little bit of experience with both of them. I definitely prefer if it slows down beforehand. It's a little unnerving just bombing straight into the corner and seeing it coming, and even if I do know that the system should react, it's still a little unnerving, and sometimes that threshold for when it starts to slow down is a little bit higher than I would be comfortable with.
So if you'll notice here, we're now in BlueCruise, and it also read the speed limit as 55, but this is still a 65 zone. I believe the 55 comes up here, which it does, into the construction zone. So since I believe I manually took it off the 55, it's going to listen to my command. Again, a scooch working perfectly for those trucks. I'm going to slow us down to 55, which is what the actual speed limit is. If we had kept on, 55 right now, the speed limit raises, the vehicle speed will raise as well. If you take a look here, you'll see we're all the way to the left side of the lane on this display. In actuality, we're just a little bit over, but really interesting. So now we're going to lane change back to the right. And it really seems to me right off the bat that this is a night and day difference between BlueCruise 1.0 to 1.2.
I'm really impressed. Those lane changes are exactly what I would expect from you driving normally.
Yeah, it feels good. Nice Corvette, no license plates. Welcome to Colorado. But huge improvements from previous software right here. And it's not like one major thing that's any better or worse. I guess I don't have to touch the wheel. We're in hands-free. It really comes down to the actual small little things, these lane changes that work flawlessly, the scooching, the total reduction of ping-ponging. It's not gone completely, and this is a really tough section because technically this isn't part of the mapping, so we'll see if it keeps onto hands-free or not, but it would, because the normal highway that was mapped is over there. And it's doing it perfectly. This is really good. Let's see how it handles this S-turn section. Cruising through, no hesitation. Wow. Has to be one of the best we've actually experienced up to this point.
I'm really impressed.
What's interesting is I've been using a lot of the Tesla stuff recently, so it actually, I think, kicked out of BlueCruise there for a second. It now wants my hands on the wheel. One thing we noted with F-150 Lightning, and I really think it should have been included in BlueCruise 1.2, is a chime or something that says I'm now out of BlueCruise and I'm into normal hands-on driver assistance. And the reason is, now we're back to hands-free. They say watch the road. They don't say watch the screen. So now we're back. We just went BlueCruise and out. There was no chime. And if my eyes are up here, even in my peripheral, I'm not really noticing what's going on.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to miss it light up blue or back to black. Yeah.
Wow, that backdrop right now, incredible. One thing we look for, we always try to drive in the right lane on these tests whenever possible. And the reason is, especially when exits in Colorado, they're not dotted through the whole thing. Oh, we lost a view facing us. Ryan, would you mind remounting that?
Yep.
Let me undo that. There you go. These are new mounts, and they definitely are not perfect yet. So let's see if we can get this back. There we go. Is it running still? No, battery popped out. So, back on. You're viewing, repairing our file. Great. Thank you, GoPro. And hopefully it'll figure itself out. But either way, file repaired. Good news. And we're recording. We run in the right lane here because if you take a look at this is one of the hardest sections of the whole Hogback, and it's purely because this one lane with no dotted line goes wide. But I'm not feeling any hesitation, any bit of weirdness.
That was perfect.
That was textbook perfect.
Wow.
So, and you'll notice if you look just straight ahead, we are locked into our lane right now. There is none of this meandering or this ping-ponging. Now we're back to hands-free. Wish there was a chime. So, I would say harder conditions with lighting, especially at this at night times versus daytime. In general, I find systems perform slightly better in the day. So far, we haven't had to take over once.
Yeah.
We've had nothing to deduct.
And beyond that, it's been behaving extremely well, and it's really, really smooth.
So you took this on a trip into the mountains. Oh, we went wide there, and we touched the line. That's a -1.
All right.
I think it saw that exit go into 1. So, okay, we do have a deduction.
Yes.
It can't be perfect.
Not quite.
But you took this on a trip to, where'd you go? Up to Glenwood Springs?
Up to Glenwood Springs and back, yep.
What'd you think of the car, the system? What was your impression?
So I left at night, and it was snowing a bit, and there was a little bit of traffic. So I think the conditions were a bit more challenging than they are currently. I saw a lot of the behavior where the BlueCruise would kick on in the straightaways, and then it would just go to the regular hands-free. Aside from that, we had one instance of phantom braking,
Okay.
which was pretty impressive considering all the driving that we did.
I would say Teslas, with the newer ones, in my experience, have been phantom braking a lot more
Yes.
than any other system, really.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about Tesla as time goes on, but curious to hear the rest of your thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah. I was pretty impressed by it. It was smooth, easy to use, comfortable. For the most part, it handled curves pretty well. I think there might have been 1 or 2 times where it was going around a bend a little bit faster than I personally would have gone, but nothing too serious. And all the new features like the scooching over in the lane, automatic lane changes is just really nice to have. Makes it a lot more usable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And on the topic of hands-free, actually, hands-free, I don't think in like the way that you're supposed to use these systems awards that much benefit, because versus having my hands here versus here, like maybe I could eat a sandwich, I could take a sip, like I'll certainly take it over not hands-free. But let's be honest, most people use these systems to like text and not do what they're supposed to do while they drive. And I have to say, like, the whole thing where you're like, you know, I did some testing on the drive down today where I would look at my phone a little bit, or at least pretend to be looking at a phone, and I can demonstrate it here just briefly. And I'm looking away, and it goes for a long time without me watching the road. Like, I hope you're watching the road for me.
I am.
Thank you. And now it says keep hands on steering wheel, so it actually shut off, and there it said watch the road. So we had 2 warnings at the same time, because BlueCruise hands-free shut off, and it also wanted me to watch the road. But no chimes other than to watch the road. So I find that this car and human interaction works okay when the human's doing everything they're supposed to be doing, but humans don't do what they're supposed to be doing when using these systems in practice. So, you know, just texting away at your phone, glancing at the road very quickly, and then looking back away, this system allows you to do all that. And yeah, so I just thought that was an interesting point. The other thing is, in hands-free mode, it's not like you can just kind of relax. I think it shows it, and we're not actually in hands-free mode. See, I totally forgot which mode we were in. It shows that the car can do more than it can, because I was driving in hands-free mode the other day down the highway, and the road curved, and it was not part of a mapped highway, and there's a construction zone, and like it was going for the wall.
Oh.
And like, you know, systems mess up. They're not perfect. We're here to take over. But like in hands-free mode, I was definitely like, oh no, it's definitely got it. And it definitely did not have it. And I had to go, whoa, grab the wheel and move it. So there was also a great YouTube video we just watched of someone demonstrating that exact situation with, you know, other lane markings and it confusing the system, but it's staying in hands-free mode. It definitely is a little bit awkward, I think.
Absolutely.
When you're like, don't touch the wheel, but then you're like, I'm gonna crash, I'm gonna touch the wheel, what am I supposed to do? You know, there should be something like hands-free takeover if necessary.
Yep, I definitely agree. I think it's the whole like hands-free autopilot, all that kind of stuff. It's not really how we should be using it.
Right. Yeah. You definitely want to, like, you have to really force yourself to do what you're supposed to do as a driver, in full transparency, to pay attention during this situation. But just so impressed. So the speed limit's going to drop to 55. It knows this ahead of time. It's bringing our speed down in advance of the speed limit. As soon as we hit the 55 mile an hour speed limit sign, we've already been slowed down to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, and it was a smooth slowdown.
So smooth. And so now with this test, some of our viewers who watch this, these reviews, they know it gets harder as time goes on. And so now we're coming into, I would say, level 11 difficulty. This is some of the twistiest and gnarliest U.S. interstate out there. So let's see what happens. There's a truck that has to merge into our lane. I'm going to flick us into the left here. Unbelievable lane changes. Love the animation. It's so confident. It's so smooth. And I've noticed even if cars are coming up behind you, like always check, but it does a great job of not moving over in front of a car. And the other thing I've noticed is once it kind of commits to a lane change, you're kind of in and it's doing it. Like for example, right now, it won't actually go to the right. So I'm going to manually move us over. So I would say, let's take that as a -1.
Okay.
Because it was indicating that we should have changed lanes, but it didn't. So as we were praising it, it didn't complete. But one thing I noticed is once it commits to a lane change, it hasn't really backed out on me. Whereas with Tesla, occasionally it gets confused mid-lane change and it hard sends you back into another lane. And so much so that it can actually upset the car. And I have a story I tell often where Alyssa was driving the Model 3 years ago, and this is on new Tesla software, and we were in rain, and the system did that. We were fishtailing all over the road.
That's pretty frightening.
Yeah, for sure. So surprisingly, on hands-free here, even in a very tricky section of the road, considering this is straight, maybe not so much. I'm curious if it kicks off up here. When you took the Mach-E on the trip, how much BlueCruise were you using?
I had the cruise control set for the whole time with lane centering.
Okay.
It would switch on and off. It was probably maybe only 30% BlueCruise. It didn't have the opportunity to do it a lot. I think it might have just been the conditions with the snow and darkness, but...
And now you can see hands-free is off and we're coming into this tight section. So let's see how it does here. I'm, of course, just letting the wheel kind of flow through my hands, keeping an eye on all of our surroundings. Very impressive. It's slowing down for this corner. You can see it's this is a really tough one. Again, goes wide. It's hugging the inside line. A little bit too much acceleration on the out. Maybe not. That felt pretty good.
That's all right.
Wow. I have to say, some of the Ford guys, by the way, it's pretty funny. They're like, oh, we're not so sure how it's going to do in the Hogback. It's freaking killing it.
Yeah.
This is a really rough one because we have a wall on the right, so let's see how it does.
Yeah.
It's slowing down to 48 and a 55. Perfectly executed. So many times we have to take over for cars in that corner. It just didn't even care.
Yeah.
And this is the last corner, I believe, if I remember correctly, of the Hogback before we flip around. And so far we've only deducted 2 points, right?
That's right.
Wow.
And on
Actually,
top
a couple
of that,
more. Go ahead.
It's not just that it's scoring well, but it's behaving really well. Subjectively, it feels great.
It kind of feels like a human.
Yeah, it's something that I'd want to use.
It's night and day difference from the previous BlueCruise system. I wish there was a way to set cornering speed from like low, medium, or fast. Some cars have that, like Audi does, for example. It slows down for corners like this, and it's like, do you want it to go fast through the corner? I'd actually want it to go a little bit quicker than what it's doing now, and just be a little bit more assertive with the steering.
Yeah.
But it hasn't complained at all. So here we are. We always let it go just a little bit past the exit because we want to know if it's going to take the exit for us out of confusion, which is always nice, but does deduct points, and it is rock steady here. So, and that is halfway through the Hogback, and I'm taking it off of cruise control now. Ryan, I totally echo your thoughts where that was probably, we've driven every system, I think, on the market or close to it. That was probably the most natural human feeling system.
100%.
Really good. And we're not just like saying that, like, I don't know, maybe you are, but I'm like really impressed, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I've tested plenty of the systems. This is absolutely the most natural.
So the one point I wanted to bring up was Tesla's version 11 full stack. I think that's going to be the new benchmark here. And I've been waiting for it to update to my car, and it hasn't done it at the time that we're recording this. But I'm really looking forward to it. So let's go hard throttle. We're at 45%, so we don't get maximum power. And we're right up to speed. We actually had a little bit of power limitation there because that's what happens with Mach-E. And let's lock it back in at the speed limit. 3, 4, 5. If you have even a slight bit of throttle input, it doesn't actually let you raise the speed, which is a little bit weird. Now we're locked back in on BlueCruise, non-hands-free at the moment. I really love how the whole screen goes blue when it's on hands-free. It's almost, no confusion when I look down, but I'm very rarely, honestly, looking down in just normal driving.
Yeah, it is clear when you do look.
Yes, absolutely. When you look, it's like, yeah, I know exactly what's going on here.
Just to back up for a moment, could you talk a little bit more about what's new on that Tesla update?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly because right now, went a little wide there, but didn't touch a line, so no points deducted.
Okay.
The Tesla update basically takes its FSD beta for the city and puts it on the highway now, which before it was 2 separate systems basically running. And my understanding is that it's just pretty incredible. And we touched the line, -1. Definitely doing a little bit worse on the return. Sometimes we see cars do better on the return. We've had a couple little weird things.
Yeah.
This used to be the corner of death because the lines weren't painted there. Mach-E GT doesn't ride well.
No.
I think you got to get a GT Performance with mag ride.
Yep. That was, something we noticed pretty quickly.
Yep. Yeah, you had the same comments before I even sent them to you.
Yep.
You're like, Kyle, is this kind of ride like crap? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I didn't lead my girlfriend either. I just got her in the car for the road trip. 5 minutes in, she's like, is this normal? Is it supposed to feel like this?
It's pretty amazing that I think the car's just set up not perfectly. Now we're back to hands-free. I would say just impressions on the return, and now it's reading the speed limit. We're up to 65, although there is a car right here, unfortunately, so I don't know how we're going to handle this. What happens if I trigger a lane change with a car next to us? It says preparing lane change. Let's see how long it goes. So it's just basically asking for the lane. As soon as he goes by, it then moves over.
That's how I'd want it to be.
That sounds good to me. You do sit there with your turn signal on for a while.
Yeah.
And then we'll knock it back into the right lane, preparing lane change. I love that it's scooched over for the truck. So unbelievably good here. The one actual point when we were doing the scoring system here, we mentioned we give it 2 points if it shows cars around us. It does not show cars around us.
That's right.
So again, we're not going to give it those points, which I believe is how we had it set.
That's correct.
Yeah. This is always sketchy to have this big speed differential, but look, it's hugging the left line. That felt so nice. That's exactly where I would put the car.
Yeah.
Well, I would move into the left lane, but that's exactly where I would put the car if I were there.
Yeah, that was how I would do it.
Damn, Ford is freaking killing it right now.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, they were like, we don't really know how it's going to do.
That was the funniest part.
Yeah. I was like, well, sorry, we're going to run it in the Hogback regardless. Like, we're here to test it. They're like,
and then they knock it out of the park.
And they're freaking destroying everyone at the moment. Like, what's the best we've had so far? Was 17?
17.
Right?
It's currently at 17.
We're at 17 right now?
Correct.
So we're tied for first place at the moment.
Yes.
Wow. And what was the best Tesla we've run? Can you take a look at that?
I'll take a look. Let's see. 2022 Tesla Model 3 with 7 points.
So 7 points in the Tesla. Also because it didn't earn a lot of points up front because it doesn't have hands-free stuff that this earned extra points for.
Mm-hmm.
I really actually used to not really like BlueCruise. Not that I didn't like it, but to me it was just like one of the meh systems. And I was actually talking to Matt Farah about it. We did a Smoking Tire podcast recently, and we were talking about driver assistance. He's like, he has BlueCruise in his car, and he and I were both like, yeah, it's like because it ping pongs everywhere and it just wasn't great.
Yeah.
This rocks.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting too, because when I was talking to the engineers, they're like, we have a long ways to go to fix ping-ponging, right? And they're like, you know, it's really not where we want it to be. I have zero complaints about the ping-ponging here.
Yeah, I don't really know what they're talking about, to be honest.
So maybe they should work on, I don't know, something else, because this seems pretty good.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Wow, I'm so impressed, especially as they kind of like prepared. Maybe they were just playing a joke on us.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, yeah, it's sandbagging, it's not going to do great. Still do the test, but you know.
Yeah. Oh, is there anything we can do to make you not do the test?
Right. It wasn't really at that level, but there was something, you know, they were definitely concerned, I would say. But no, it's really freaking rocking. That's so funny. And I shouldn't go hands-free because it's not hands-free. So now I'm used to driving. Like if you live in Kansas, if you live in, you know, somewhere where there's a lot of straight roads, you can pretty much, you just get used to not ever touching the wheel. But around here in the corners, I think it is smart that it has you touch the wheel still. Yeah. Perhaps on the next software update, they'll do a little bit differently. Now, some things I like about BlueCruise, since we're on the topic, is I like that I can reposition the car in the lane manually without breaking out of the system. So with autopilot, with Rivian's Driver Plus, you're either on what the car wants to do or you're in manual control. And with this, is I can kind of nudge the car around, and I'll just demonstrate that here. I'm just going to pull it in a little bit. So I'm doing this manually, and then I can let go, and it locks back to where it wants to go. I love that feature. And before it did automatic lane changes, what you would do is you would hit the turn signal, it would cancel the system, I would merge over, and then it would lock itself back on. And yeah, now it's just like they got it down here. It's just pretty funny that they were like, it's not going to do well. And it's right now it's tied for first, and we're almost at the end.
Yeah.
Wow. I really can't wait to run a Tesla with this FSD 11, whatever it's called, 11.3, I think.
It'll be really exciting.
Yeah, we'll get the plan out as soon as that car gets it. I have it hooked up to Wi-Fi, got the advanced updates on, whatever I need to do.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we'll have the Lyric to test with Super Cruise soon, so I'm looking forward to that. We really should run more Ioniq 5 EV6 stuff in this test. Maybe you and Max actually want to take the EV6 on this weekend. Yeah, I'll be gone, but yeah, that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I'll talk with him.
Yeah. So here we go, another tricky situation where the lane goes wide, but the road stays left. Didn't even flinch.
Nope.
Not even a millimeter. Also, we're being too nice to Ford. Let me complain for a second. You cannot set a charge limit in this car easily.
Yep.
This looks like I can drag it and just say I want it to charge to 80% or 50%. No, it just tells you what you're charged at. You have to actually set up a manual location and tell it to charge there. And they don't show kilowatt charging speed.
Yep.
Every Mach-E review, I'm going to complain about that until they fix it.
Yes.
I have to get all the OBD stuff going, which I have hooked up on this car, to see charging speed.
Yeah.
Even your Bolt shows charging speed.
Sure does. All 50 kilowatts.
What a machine. Well, consider me the most impressed person in the world right now.
Yeah, I'm very impressed.
I was totally expecting just for this to like get destroyed.
Yeah, my dad had a, I think 2016 Volvo, and that had really early
pilot assist. Yeah.
And that was garbage.
It was terrible.
Horrible.
And you know what's funny about those early Volvo pilot assists? What they would have, like forward collision warning or whatever, would activate ADAS all the time. And that's how it would like alert you to stuff. So like 2016, 2017 XC90s were warping brake rotors like crazy. So you could just get free brake rotors from Volvo. They've warranted all brake rotors because of pilot assist warping them. It's better now. I don't actually know if we've run a pilot assist vehicle in this test.
I don't believe.
Yeah, we should do a Polestar. Oh, turn. It did it. We touched the line. -1, Ryan.
Another one.
-1 right at the end. It went a little wide there. But
Yeah.
it was still like not sketchy, but we're deducting a point. So it's not the winner then.
Yeah, correct. I was definitely expecting a 2016 pilot assist. Instead, I've got one of the best self-driving systems I've ever experienced.
Yep, and at the speed limit it went to 55, but I don't think it's actually 55. So just like we did with Lightning, I think -1 editor's input, we're going to say, sorry, but you don't know all the speed limits. Because this is where it goes to 55, but I think they covered it up. So yeah, it's actually still 65. It's 45 for trucks.
Interesting. And -1 for that?
-1, yeah. We also have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of following distance we can adjust. I always find that I keep it on like distance 2 in like dense traffic, but if I'm coming into traffic, like a slowdown, I actually back it to distance 4 because I find it's a bit of a late breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so just putting a little bit extra force distance in reduces, and it's the same thing the other guy said in his video. I can't remember the name of his channel, but he like hacked BlueCruise 1.2 into his F-150, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But he said the same thing. He backs it away for slowdowns. I really liked his video. I'm going to link it in the description because I think he did such a good job with his explainer. Ford probably doesn't like that because he hacked it into his truck, but great video.
It was a good video, yeah.
Great video. Oh, hands-free, even in the little weird, it's not a construction zone, but non-normal traffic pattern.
Yeah.
Beautiful view of Denver off in the distance at night. Man, I was kind of thinking like this would do really bad, and then we'd say, all right, well, if it did really bad at night, let's try it again during the day, just to see, and zero ping-ponging. So let's talk a little bit more about the Mach-E owners that are watching this video that don't have this software, that are all going to want it.
Yep.
And they're all going to want it way more after watching this video.
Yes.
Sorry, but Ford is really slow with their software updates.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure they announced BlueCruise 1.2 in September of 2022.
Yes.
Which is 6 months ago today.
Is it? Yeah.
7?
Yeah, 6 months ago. And so now 23 production's getting it. Like, what I don't understand is why can't you just say, here's a packet of information, boom, send it to all the cars. That's what Tesla does. Why is it hard for Ford to do that?
I'd be really interested to know what's...
We should ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do a video on why do the cars have over-the-air capability, but they're not deploying over-the-air updates. And I know a lot of it has to do with like package sizes and maybe cost of like telephone bills might be a play of it for data. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'd be
Just
really
make everyone hook up
interested
to
know.
Wi-Fi.
I imagine that there is a reason.
There's got to be a reason. Otherwise, why wouldn't they put this on every car? It rocks. But really cool of Ford to literally send this vehicle straight from Michigan to us to test BlueCruise 1.2.
Yeah.
We're one of the first to ever make a video on it. Not the first, because that other guy beat us with a hack. But we are one of the first. And really nice of them to literally bypass all the press stuff. I think this came from like their engineering department. They put it on a truck. I picked it up at a rest stop right off the highway. And there's a whole video on my personal channel about that. And it was just so cool.
Well, those engineers definitely know what they're doing.
And the Hogback is gaining its place in the automotive landscape. Because when I was talking to the ADAS guys over there, who I'm sure are watching this, hey guys, they're all in Pittsburgh, I think. Or at least the head dude is. And I don't want to like give away his name here, but you know who you are. And he's like, oh, we know the Hogback. So it's starting to, they don't get huge views on YouTube, but I think it's great to be able to experience driver assistance systems in this tough of an environment.
Absolutely. And for people who are really interested, I don't think there's anything like this right now.
No, agreed. We're going a little bit under the set speed, so after this vehicle who's lane changing in our blind spot goes by, kick on the signal, see what it does. There, I tried to confuse it, but it waited. Yeah, let's get back up to 65. Only a couple corners left. We'll see if it slows down for them, because I believe it was slowing down for them on the uphill.
I think so.
Yeah. So let's see, right now we're still full speed on the way down. So it's taken off of hands-free. We're now in manual driving. We have our exit right here. So I think I'm going to have to take over manually and jump in front of this truck to get our exit. It's slowing down for it, and it's doing it nicely. But our exit's right here, so I'm taking it off the system. I'm just going to manually accelerate and pull us off the highway right there at the end, which it would have done that corner perfectly anyway.
I don't have any doubt.
So, final tally, what's the score of this thing?
We are at 15 with the editor's input.
So where does that put us on the cars that we've tested so far? I guess we should kick the lights on in here.
Yeah, that puts it into second place in front of the 2022 GMC Sierra Denali and behind the Mercedes AMG EQS.
So BlueCruise beat SuperCruise.
That's right.
Wow. And SuperCruise was awesome. The Mercedes system was really good in the EQS. And, well, crap.
How would you compare how natural SuperCruise felt to BlueCruise?
There is something weird about SuperCruise where this felt a lot more natural to me on this software, but it's been a little while since I've driven it. Also, that was in a pickup truck, and this is in, so I think a Lyric versus this might be a more accurate test. I really think we should actually do a video where we do Volkswagen's Travel Assist, ID4, Mach-E, Ioniq 5 or EV6, whichever has HDA2 at the time that we can get, Lyric, and compare all the systems. I don't know if I said Tesla, but I want autopilot in that test with the new full stack.
I think that'd be great.
That should be an upcoming video. We should just run all cars in a line.
Yep,
on the
same conditions, yeah.
Great. Well, congrats to Ford. I'm blown away.
I'm impressed.
Just by using the system in daily driving, it's freaking awesome. So there you go. Second place. Mercedes is ahead. This probably had, if you go to the driving score, how many times did we have to take over in the Mercedes?
Let's see.
EQS, yeah. So we had to do driver takeover for safety 1 and an auto disengagement where it said it couldn't do it 1 time. And what was the score here for this one? How many times did we have to take over in this?
Sorry, that would be
4 with no auto disengagement. So technically the driving portion, this was better.
That's right.
Where it lost points was the safety bits.
That's correct.
Which Mercedes yanks the seatbelt and does all the stuff.
Exactly.
So technically, in terms of actual driving, this wins.
Yep.
Maybe SuperCruise does too. I don't know. But you can go through the score. I really don't put too much value on the score. My impressions of using this system is what seems like a small update to 1.2 is actually a massive improvement.
Yes.
So congratulations to Ford, and thank you so much for letting us test the system. We thought we were going to have to trash you, sorry. But no, this was freaking great, and we'll see you on another video soon. Thanks for sticking with us on this long hogback. Bye-bye.